with all the hype of this Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight and the outcome, I just figured I would do. I just talk about boxing a little bit. I've had I think 76 professional boxing matches, and while I was never at that level, I mean, I was nobody. I was an opponent. I still had some experience in the boxing world. My career started. Just kind of like on a fluke. It was a mixed card in 1999 where they used to allow them to do professional boxing for half the card and mixed martial arts fights for the other half of the card. That was when you could have MMA fights in the ring, a boxing ring. And I was asked by the promoter Ronnie Cox if I just wanted to try pro boxing. And I'd had some amateur fights and done some tough man, but I just wasn't really confident in my boxing ability, so I was hesitant, but I agreed to do it, and I ended up fighting a guy who I had fought in MMA, and I had fought him a year earlier in MMA, and they said he'd had one pro boxing match, and I was actually a little concerned about it because when I fought him in MMA, it was blow for blow. I mean, he stood there and traded with me, so I figured that the boxing match might go the same and I'd gas out or something. The fight really was legitimately one punch long. I won in 15 seconds, and that included a 10 count. I came in, threw a right hand, dropped him, and he got back up and fell right back down. And knocked him out. And fluke in my book, but it was still pretty cool, I suppose. I was asked to do a couple boxing matches over that summer. I'd done that one in February of 1999, and was asked to do a couple more in the summer of '99. And I lost to both. I gassed out. I didn't get dropped or even hurt. I just quit in between rounds. I had no idea really how to conserve my energy in boxing. Even in the tough man days, there was 1 minute rounds, and even though I could do MMA and throw some blows, after a 1 minute round, I wasn't really exhausted. But when I first started, I had no idea how to conserve my energy and breathe easily and stick in there for a little bit. It was just balls to the wall at all times. Whereas with MMA, I got my rest on the ground. Once I went to the ground, if my guard or if I was on top of them, I knew how to rest in that position. My first step-up fight of sorts was a fight they didn't want to do. It was against a guy named Ty Fields. Ty went on to have, I don't even know what the story was. I never understood the purpose of these guys who get brought up and then just never really get that huge payday. In MMA, the MMA world and the boxing world are so much different. You take a guy like a Randy Couture or Chuck Liddell, somebody like that. Couture, I'm just going to throw this out there. I think he was at 19 wins, 13 losses. Chuck Liddell was 20-some wins, 10, 11, 12 losses. In the boxing world, that was, you weren't anybody. Look at the guys this weekend. Wilder was, 40-something, 47-0 or 45-0, and Fury was 30-0. I don't even know. I didn't pay attention. But, these guys in the boxing world, they get brought up, 15 to 20-0, and they just get, they fight out the opponents and then work their way up to, the prospects, and then just the eventual hope is that they get a big payday fight, and I don't even know. I was never at that level, so it's been confusing to me as well. And considering what I got paid to do some boxing matches, there's always money in that sport. I never understood that either. My step-up fight with Ty Fields, they were concerned. He was 6'9", I believe, and they were concerned that he would that could knock him out. And the fight, I worked that day, and the fight was in Davenport, like 2 hours from me, and I got off work with enough time to drive there and have an hour away. I mean, I took it on like 3 hours notice. And with the fight, actually I had him in trouble. I caught him and he was going through the ropes and they separated us. And I'm like, I beat the fuck out of this fucking big bastard. And came in and threw an overhand right, and this guy hit me with a left to the body. And all I know is that fucking ref was in my face counting. And I was like, it's done. I mean, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't talk. It knocked the wind out of me. It was horrible. And I know it was a 9 or 10 count before I could even breathe. So I couldn't breathe for 15 seconds, or give or take. That fucking sucked. So, yeah, welcome to your step-up fight. I picked up a couple of wins. I mean, I didn't take boxing seriously. Just more mixed cards. And I was offered a fight in Philadelphia against another guy they're bringing up. He was like 12-0 or somewhere around those lines. And he was like, he won some tough man. And once again, I had no real, I'm learning as it goes along. I was just a brawler. And I think the stupidest part of the fight was he had me in a corner. And I mean, nothing's hurting or anything. And he had me in the corner, the crowd was cheering. And when the punches stopped, I just winged an overhand right blindly and looked up. And he backed out of the corner. He was probably 10 feet from me. And the crowd just laughed. And it was embarrassing. But it was one of my bigger paydays to date, and I had this wrong misconception that I was being offered these big paydays because they'd heard of me from UFC, MMA, or something, and it took me a while to realize that I was getting offered these paydays because I had a winning record, and I was heavyweight. I guess that matters. I don't know. I don't really understand it, and it's just there's, the promotions and boxing is they've got their management groups and they pay them. It works completely different than MMA does. And I have no idea where the money comes from in the sport of boxing. And the money in boxing, it trickles downhill. To put it in perspective, the MMA main events might get a couple $100,000, and both these guys got multiple millions this last weekend. And even the lowest level fights, you're getting like $1,000. MMA, a Midwestern fight, $1,000 was like a main event purse. So it starts at the top and just goes all the way down. So I mean, these guys could legitimately make a living as a professional boxer. And it'd be guys you never heard of, like the Ty Fields guy. I don't know that he ever had any really big fights, but he probably made a living as a boxer for 10 years or so. My first, bigger event for boxing was in 2005. I fought in Las Vegas, and it was at the MGM Grand. I was excited because it was my biggest payday to date, and in any sport. And I was fighting a guy who was like 33-1 or something, some Polish fighter. I took it based on the money and the experience, but I know the first part was at the weigh-ins. There were like 10,000 people there, and I'm like, why the fuck are there so many people at these weigh-ins? And I knew nothing about boxing. It turned out later it was I realized because it was the Pacquiao-Morales fight. I don't remember if it was the first or second one. I know Pacquiao lost that. I obviously didn't do well in fight with Sosnowski in Vegas. I think his biggest fight, he lost to Klitschko in like the 10th round. I'm not even sure which Klitschko he fought. I just had fun, I guess. I don't know. Sometimes it wasn't fun. It's not fun. I never got that mid-level guy back in the early days. I was either fighting a complete bum or I was fighting some up-and-coming prospect, fighting guys like 30-0. And, I would do it. I tried. I have too much pride to go out there and, fall down. But I did it for the money. It was good money, and, I knew I couldn't win, and it sucked. It sucks going into something knowing you have no chance. I did fight a guy who fought this last weekend. For anybody who actually watched that fight, I boxed Gerald Washington. He lost in the semi-main. He was a tough dude. I fought him in 2013 down in Mexico. And that's the thing, too, with boxing. I'll see these fights later, and I got rocked. I mean, I've been rocked plenty of times in boxing. I don't have very good defense. And I remember with that one, I got stopped in the first round. Sucks. It was a big payday. It was crazy. It was in Mexico, and it was supposed to be at a resort, like a big resort, and they moved it last minute. It was promoted by Oscar de la Hoya, and they moved it to like some 300-year-old bullfighting arena, and it was on TV, so there were like 50 people there. So they moved the crowd down around the ring, so on TV it didn't look like it was an empty show. And I got dropped 3 times, and watching the fight, didn't really look like I got hit hard, but I remember being in the back after the fight, and I was telling my corner man, I was like, well, at least I got out of the first round. I was like, no, you won. And yeah, I did. I got stopped in the first. So I thought I would get to the second, but apparently I was wrong. There was also, I'd get calls from different, I don't even know how these guys even got a hold of me back in the day. They'd get my number from somewhere, and these little fight, I don't even know what the fuck you want to call them, like, agents, or, I mean, they weren't even matchmakers. They were just like I don't even know what to call them. I mean, it was just like little agents that would, just, cutthroat everybody. And remember one of the first fights I got, I had a fight in Denmark, and several of them were like, what are you getting paid for this fight? And I told them, like, oh, somebody made like $10,000 off of you. And I was happy with what I got. And that was what they were doing. They would work for the matchmakers and go and try and find guys to fill these fights, and that's where they'd end up picking me up. And I had no idea where these guys came from, but if I was happy with what I was making, then I guess if they made $2,000, $3,000, $10,000 off it, what the fuck ever. I mean, what could I do about it? The boxing match though this last weekend. This isn't like the Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather joke. Because, I mean, Mayweather could smoke McGregor around if he wanted to. I mean, this was legit boxing, legitimate fighters, and, the Tyson Fury doesn't have, he has just an awkward style, and just looks gangly and goofy, but, I mean, he must hit like a truck, and, his style must mess with guys. I mean, Deontay Wilder was an Olympic bronze medalist, or gold medalist, I don't remember which he was. He's a good boxer. And he must hit hard as hell too. But it's cool to see people rallying behind it. It's just weird that so many celebrities will rally behind boxing, but they just won't pick up on MMA like that just yet. But by the time that type of recognition in the sport of MMA comes along, I mean, guys like me will be long gone. I still plan to do some more boxing, and even crossing over to bare knuckle boxing. Boxing, it's not as hard on your body as your head. That's why you'll see these boxers, they'll box till they're 50, and they get brought up, late 20s, early 30s, that's when they turn pro. And MMA, that's, you're too old by that time. But MMA is a lot tougher on your body, and that's why your fighting careers will never last nearly as long. Just thought I'd say something regarding this fight. It was neat to see so much interest in fighting. It's cool when there's some hype and something that you're involved in.